Hi, I'm Martha, and welcome to Highland Cottage Books. Today we are going to talk about 6 disturbing novellas, 2 extra short, extra upsetting novels, and 2 bonus short stories that will rob you of the concept of joy, at least for a few days. These are perfect if you're looking for a little existential dread, but you're short on time. If you're new here, welcome. Please hit the subscribe button before you're too weirded out to do it. And know that normally I make you coffee or tea, but today I made a little warm milk with a splash of vanilla because I figured if you read any of these books, you're going to need a little extra help falling asleep. So grab your whoopee or a favorite plushie. I have my friend Lou here. She's a Clydesdale, and she's very stylish today because she's wearing my microphone. So get ready, have a seat on the couch, and let's talk books. Comfort Me with Apples tells a fairy tale like story of a woman who lives a perfect life with her perfect husband in a perfect house in her perfect gated community called Arcadia Gardens. Everything is going great for her. She's perfectly in love and everything feels perfect. Until one day she's sitting at her vanity and she discovers a locked drawer. She opens it up and there's a hairbrush that isn't hers next to a lock of hair that isn't hers. Does he have a mistress? But that can't be because everyone says they're in love. And the neighbors all tell her that it's like she's the only woman in the world for him. She puts these thoughts aside until she's in the kitchen and she discovers a human finger bone. She doesn't want to mistrust her husband, but something feels a little off. It's best to go into this book completely blind because there are a few plot twists that you will not see coming. In the test, a dentist from Tehran who's both kind and optimistic is sitting for his UK citizenship test. He's been living in London with his family for 5 years and he's having a good time on the test so far. The questions are about historical and cultural things like who is the patron saint of Wales and what is his feast day? And because of this book, I learned that it's St. David and his feast day is March 1st. And what team is also sometimes called the Gunners? And this one I already knew because it was my dad's favorite football team, and so it's Arsenal. And he's doing well when suddenly terrorists come and take everyone in the testing center hostage. What happens next is harrowing and suspenseful, and I was really rooting for Adir, the dentist, and I was worried about him, and what he goes through made me stay up late into the night thinking about all of the implications. I love stories like Lost and Hyperion and the Silo series that have overarching mysteries and deep lore and mythologies, and I love trying to figure out what's going to happen next. So be warned that despite its intriguing premise, I Who Have Never Known Men isn't going to give you the answers you're looking for. It's not about getting those answers. It's about a young girl who is imprisoned for years with 39 women in an underground bunker. They're sort of in a cage and they have male guards watching them who never speak to them or really interact with them. You know, they're fed, or rather they're given food and then they can cook their own food. But there's no books, there's no Netflix, there's nothing to entertain them. They are discouraged from talking too much to each other and they're not allowed to touch each other. So it's very, very boring and there's very little meaning in their lives. And then one day, an alarm goes off while they're being given their food and the door is open to the cage. Once the alarm goes off, the guards just immediately put down everything and leave. And now the door's open. So the women kind of venture out into the world and try to see what's happened, where they are, how they can get out of their situation and all those things. And this book is beautifully written, but it's very, very bleak. Um, I don't know what else to tell you about it. It is disturbing. You will be thinking about it for months and months if you're anything like me. Reading it is not necessarily an enjoyable experience, although, as I said, the writing is brilliant. Um, but what it does do is it fills your head with all sorts of thoughts. And that's all I'm going to say about that. In the ironically titled A Short Stay in Hell, which is a short book for you to read, a man dies and goes to hell. He's not a bad man or anything. It is just that he happened to follow the wrong religion if he wanted to seek salvation. In this book, I believe the proper religion is Zoroastrianism, but that's really not the point. The point is that the hell that he's in is based on Jorge Luis Borges's Library of Babel, which is a short story. And Jorge Luis Borges is one of my favorite writers. So I was immediately going to read this as soon as I found out that it existed. And I'm very, very glad that I did. So in this version of hell, you can be released if you find a book about your life, you find the book of your life in the library. Now, the library contains every single book that ever existed or could exist. So that means there's a book in the shelves that is 300 pages of just semicolons, and another book that is 299 pages of semicolons, and then on the third page or the third paragraph of, page 27, there's a B instead of a semicolon, and every other iteration that you could possibly find. There are books of complete nonsense and books of just the letter C, and there's Hamlet and Twilight and the Bible and every other type of Bible, and there's Hamlet that's just, typos in it. Any book that you could possibly imagine. So he has time. He has all the time in the world to find the book with his story in it. And this book stayed with me. It is, the experience of actually reading the book is maybe an hour or two. The experience of having this book in your head will be the rest of your life, because it's incredible, it's disturbing, it's thoughtful, it's philosophical, it's numbing, it's all the things. The Unworthy is by Agustina Basarica, the same author who wrote Tender is the Flesh, which I personally found so disturbing I tapped out at around page 30. It was brilliant, but it was just getting under my skin in a bad way, and I didn't want those images in my head. So know that before we go into this story. We're reading the diary of a nun in a very cloistered religious community with a strict hierarchy. She has to write in secret using whatever she can find, whether it's, juice from berries or her own blood. As a member of the Unworthy, she is on the second lowest tier, but she aspires to become a member of the exalted class of women, which are the enlightened. She's not quite sure how the enlightened spend their days, but she knows that it has to be better than the situation that she's in now, which involves basically being under the thumb of a sadistic superior sister who sets she and her fellow sisters against each other, mostly because they don't want to be the target of her abuse. And by offering each other up, then they can save themselves from violence and pain for a day. This book is cruel and bleak, but there are also transcendent moments of beauty to be found in its pages. It goes without saying that if you're looking at a list of disturbing stories, you should probably check the content warnings on whatever it is you're reading, but I would definitely say for this one, you should look because all the content warnings. In Cudigrass, a man who's struggling with depression is on his way to toss himself in the St. Lawrence River when he discovers that the Montreal subway system has changed significantly. He enters in and finds a world of concrete. It's all brutalist architecture. There are platforms and stairs, and while there aren't any other people, he's not alone. Everything is gray, 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 and there is no exit. It's a mythology soaked gothic fever dream exploring mental illness. Good times. But it's also elegant, gorgeous, poetic, philosophical, and devastating. Gone to See the Riverman is a full length novel, but it is still very short. And once you start it, you're probably not going to want to put it down. I recommend hydration, starting earlier in the day and making sure that you have some episodes of Bridgerton or some bad reality TV or some cooking shows that you can watch afterwards, because you're going to need some comfort after you read this one. It is disturbing. I think it actually might be the most disturbing thing on this list. In it, a woman obsessed with a serial killer tries to curry favor with him by accepting a task that he sets for her. He wants her to go retrieve an item from a secret location in the woods, deep in the woods. So this sets her on a quest to go find the thing that he wants delivered to him. She ends up dragging her sister along with her because her sister has special needs and can't be left at home. And together, the pair go on a grotesque odyssey that is nightmarish and like a fairy tale, like the worst fairy tale you have ever read. And it feels very much like season one of True Detective. I warn you, the protagonist is not a good person. Not a good person at all. And again, all the trigger warnings on this one. Snuff is brought to you by the same man who brought you Fight Club and Haunted, a book that I DNF'd when I hit the chapter about the dolls. If you know, you know. But look at that. Look at the little people in his name. Anyway, it's an exploration of the adult film industry, but it is not a spicy book. It is an anti-spicy book. In it, Cassie Wright, a fading starlet of a bygone era, wants to end her career with a flourish by breaking a world record. She wants to perform with 600 scene partners in a row. Aside from being a logistical nightmare, her goal is also incredibly dangerous because such feats of carnal athleticism can actually lead to embolisms. And that is why the book is named what it is named. She's very well aware of this and has her own reasons for tempting fate in this manner. And the book follows three men in the green room who are each waiting their turn for screen time. This book is icky and explicit and has an ending that is as unforgettable as it is disgusting. I'm going to end with two extra disturbing literary classic short stories. In Kafka's In the Penal Colony, a traveler is invited to witness an execution in an unfamiliar land. A prisoner who has not been allowed a trial or even to know what he's accused of is put into a machine that will carry out the sentence. True story. I was supposed to read this in college for a class, like as homework, and I didn't get a chance to read it. I don't remember why. I'm sure I was doing something very important and responsible instead of reading the story, but we were reading two stories that day. So while my class was discussing the first story, and I had kind of half an ear open listening to the professor talk about the first story, which I had read, I was busy reading this story so that I could catch up in the second half of the class. While I was reading it, I was so disturbed by the description of the execution and the apparatus that was used that I got up from my desk and ran to the bathroom and threw up. Finally, in Those Who Walk Away from Amalos by Ursula K. Le Guin, there's a city by the sea that is just perfect. Everyone there is happy. They're celebrating a summer festival. There's music and art and peace and harmony and intellectual discussions, and everything is beautiful and wonderful, and everybody has full bellies, and nothing is wrong. It is the best place you could possibly live. But the city has a secret, and everybody's in on it. So there you have it, 10 unsettling and upsetting stories that will rattle around in your head long after you've turned the last page. If you've read any of these, or if you have any suggestions for books I might want to check out, please leave them below in the comments. I'm always looking to creep myself out with my TBR. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so now. I promise that next week we will talk about something lighter. Until then, take care of yourself, cuddle up with something warm and soft, and remember, just because it's short, it doesn't mean it can't haunt you forever. Bye!